You owe $1,200, or I'm calling the city to condemn this house. That's the line that snapped whatever patience I had left. This woman, Mary King, self-proclaimed president of the Riverside Meadows HOA, had been circling us for weeks, ramping up the threats every time she realized we wouldn't back down, and by the time she started showing up with fake paperwork and an attitude, I could see my wife Becky getting more and more rattled. But I'll tell you right now, something about Mary didn't sit right with me from the beginning. You know that feeling in your gut when you just know someone's playing a part? Yeah, that happened. So picture this. Tuesday morning, just another work-from-home day for me, except my job as David Carter, security consultant, was, well, mostly a cover for the real gig. I'm the police chief of this small town, which means I know every trick in the book, but also that I've got to keep a low profile when trouble's brewing close to home. I hear Becky come back from the store, but right after that, voices downstairs that are definitely not hers. My pulse goes from 0 to 100 because I know that sound. I edge over to the top of the stairs, and what do I see? Mary, in some sharp business suit, walking around my kitchen like she owns the place, snapping photos of my appliances, never glancing up at the security camera she's probably already cased out. This is no nosy neighbor or bored HOA president. This is a professional scammer, and she's working my house like it's her day job. She spots Becky and launches right into her act, badge out, voice clipped. She's here for a routine safety inspection, she says, on account of concerns raised by the community. Smooth, sure, but I can see the cracks. She dodges every question, throws out just enough personal info about us to look official, but it's clear she's been watching us way longer than anybody should be. I come down, still in character as the consultant, keeping my real job under wraps. If this woman's part of a bigger operation, last thing I want is her catching on and bolting before I get proof. Then her handyman shows up, Brad. All nerves and tools and glances that linger a little too long on me. The guy looks like he's been told I'm trouble, but can't put his finger on why. They start pushing Becky to pay a $500 fine for violations we've never heard of. Becky's hands are shaking, but she goes along, and I let her. Hardest thing I've had to do in months. Just watch her stress pile up while I make mental notes of every scammy move they make. But Mary slips up. Right before she leaves, she drops a line about our garage code, my birthday. That, right there, tells me she's been digging deep, way past what a real HOA would ever bother to find out. So I nudge Becky to talk to the neighbors, see what else shakes loose while I pull strings from the department in the background. Turns out, this isn't just us. Mary's been squeezing hundreds from Mrs. Garcia, Mr. Johnson, all under bogus threats, fire hazards, imaginary code violations, you name it. Every target, a woman home alone in the daytime. Every violation crafted just believable enough to make folks pay fast and quiet. Mary starts getting sloppy, maybe because Becky's asking questions, maybe because the heat's on. One night, she leaves a notebook behind our mailbox. It's got schedules, names, even vacation dates for half the block. But the real twist? When I run her and Brad's info, I find priors in 3 states, fraud, burglary, you name it. This whole thing's part of an interstate operation. And then, just when I think I've got the angle, Mary tries to up the ante by dragging in Inspector Williams, who's even greener than Brad. His fake credentials wouldn't fool a middle schooler, and his story falls apart the minute I ask for his badge number for insurance purposes. The man basically runs out the door. Brad, though, breaks. Under just a bit of pressure, he admits he's getting paid per house to invent repairs and duplicate keys. And the bombshell, Mary owes big money to people a lot. Scarier than us, and her scams are funding debts to organized crime. Now it's not just property fraud. It's a full-on RICO case waiting to happen. The whole neighborhood's involved now, and Mary, sensing the net tightening, escalates. She brings real electrical hazards into play, planning to plant them in our house, and then demand thousands for emergency repairs. I set up the house like a fortress, hidden cameras, one-way locks, even rig the exits so there's only one way out, and that's past me and my backup, Officer Ryan Mitchell. The night of the sting, Mary waltzes in with Brad's key and a duffel full of gear. She thinks she's got it made. The way she moves is all muscle memory. This isn't her first rodeo, but she doesn't realize she's on film from 6 angles. When she tries to bail, The door jams, the alarms blare, and suddenly she's the mouse in a trap. She calls 911, claims we're holding her hostage, and the dispatcher is getting the whole confession on tape while she's surrounded by her own bag of evidence. You know what I mean? That's karma, pure and simple. Ryan shows up, body cam rolling, and Mary tries to pivot. Now she's the victim. Now she lives here. Now I'm the criminal. The look on her face when she sees my police commendation plaque is the stuff of legend. She realizes too late she's been outplayed by a professional. And when she tries to handcuff herself to our front door, the only thing left to do is sit back and watch her unravel. Federal agents arrive the next day, and suddenly our little neighborhood drama is making headlines as the centerpiece in a multi-state crackdown on property fraud rings. Brad flips completely, gives up everything, names, methods, even their next targets, because facing the feds is a whole different ballgame. The community bands together, neighbors who never spoke now running security patrols and swapping stories over coffee. Restitution starts coming in, and the judge lays down a sentence on Mary that finally matches the harm she caused. Even Brad, with all he did, gets a shot at redemption, turning state's witness and helping out with legit security consulting. Of all things. But here's the kicker. Becky, after everything, becomes the neighborhood's go-to for crime prevention workshops, and I end up on a national task force consulting for the feds. My retirement? Yeah, that took a turn. But the peace of mind knowing we shut down a network that preyed on families just like ours, that's worth every sleepless night. So what do you think? Ever dealt with a fake authority figure who bit off more than they could chew? Drop your wildest HOA or scam story down in the comments. Where's the line between community rules and outright harassment? Let's hear your take, because stories like this, they only end for good when good people stand up together. And if you want more wild justice served, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay sharp out there. Truth really is stranger than fiction. If you told me 3 months ago that a fake HOA shakedown would turn my house into ground zero for a federal organized crime sting, I'd have laughed you out of the room. But that's life. 1 minute you're worrying about mailbox paint colors. The next your living room's crawling with FBI texts. Your wife is on a first-name basis with the U.S. attorney, and every neighbor who ever dodged your wave is showing up with baked goods, eager to share their own story of getting fleeced by someone who looked official. I'll admit, that first week after Mary's arrest was a blur. Our place looked less like a home than a command center. Agents bagging evidence, flash drives passed from hand to hand. Becky, God bless her, holding it together for the neighbors while the press sniffed around, hoping for a quote from the chief's wife. She became a magnet for every anxious homeowner on the block. I'd catch her on the porch, arms crossed tight, listening with that patient look she gets when she's about to tell someone the blunt truth. No sugarcoating. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but she never snapped, not once. Inside, though, things weren't so neat. For years, I'd kept a firewall between my job and our marriage, half from necessity, half from habit. Now, after all the secrets, Becky wanted answers. She'd found my hidden case files, the encrypted radio in my sock drawer, all the tools I'd stashed away for consulting work. There's no easy way to tell your spouse you've been living a double life. For their own protection, the hurt in her voice when she asked, "What else haven't you told me?" Well, that stings worse than any bullet. Let me back up a sec. See, when you're used to calling the shots, running operations, it's easy to forget the people at home don't get the luxury of context. They just get the fallout. But here's the thing about crisis. It doesn't just expose cracks. Sometimes it fills them in. I watched Becky go from frightened to fierce, trading recipes for safety tips, setting up a neighborhood phone tree so nobody felt alone if the doorbell rang at a weird hour. She even volunteered for the local victim support group, started organizing meetings where people actually showed up. One evening, she caught me lingering in the hallway and just pulled me in, whispered, "We'll talk it out, but for now, let's focus on the people who need us." Yeah, I got choked up. Who wouldn't? Meanwhile, the case against Mary and her crew kept getting bigger. Turns out, our little HOA grift was just one node in a network that stretched across 7 states. Phony boards, forged permits, and a digital trail of bank transfers to some nasty characters. Brad, the so-called handyman, took his plea deal and flipped hard. giving agents enough dirt to round up half a dozen other crews. Watching him switch sides, help the feds recover cash, and even give talks. At the community center, talk about an unexpected twist. Who knew the guy who once tried to rig my breaker box would become the reason Mrs. Garcia got her savings back? Now, the feds love the case. So much they asked me to train their task force on suburban deception tactics. My phone's never been so busy. Funny how the thing that almost wrecked your peace can become your next calling. And Becky? She started getting requests to speak at schools, churches, you name it. Our story spread, became this cautionary tale, this blueprint for fighting back when the odds seem rigged. But the real change? The neighborhood itself. Folks who used to just wave and duck inside started sticking around, grilling together, swapping phone numbers, watching each other's kids. We built a security watch, not because we were scared, but because we finally trusted each other enough to care. Even Ryan Mitchell, the rookie who'd shown up for what he thought was a routine call, got promoted to detective, his first big bust, and he nailed it. You should have seen his face at the awards banquet, blushing so hard you'd think he'd robbed a bank himself. Still, not everything tied up in a neat bow. There were plenty of heated debates. Where was the line between being vigilant and being paranoid? Some folks felt betrayed that so much had happened right under their noses. Others blamed the system for letting organized crime get so slick and neighborly. Me? I figured, as long as we kept talking, kept watching out for each other, we'd stay a step ahead. You know what I mean? One last thing about Mary. Last I heard, she took a plea on racketeering, got 15 years federal, but rumor has it she's still talking, still giving up new names. Some say she was just a pawn for bigger sharks, that there's always another crew waiting to move in, try something new. Maybe they're right. All I know is, if they do, they're walking into a neighborhood that's a whole lot harder to fool than it used to be. So that's where we're at. My wife and I, learning to trust again, neighbors tighter than ever, a community with scars, but also some real backbone. I never thought my consulting would make this kind of dent. But sometimes, when trouble knocks twice, you answer the door with backup and make damn sure it leaves empty-handed. What about you? Ever had your trust tested by someone in authority, real or fake? Think the system can really protect people? Or is it all about neighbors looking out for neighbors? I want to hear your take. Drop a comment. Share your own story. Let's keep the conversation going, because as we all learned, justice isn't just served by the courts, but by people who refuse to look away. And if you want to hear more wild rides like this, don't forget to subscribe and stay sharp. The next scam is always waiting around the corner, but now, so are we.